Good evening on this day of the Feast of the Dormition of the Mother of God. We're in the evening of the feast, having finished Vespers for tomorrow's Sunday. And wanted to discuss a little bit about the Feast of the Dormition. The sermon that I had given this morning during the feast is already online, and spoken a little bit simply because we have a lot of people who don't speak English too well here. Because it's a Saturday, we only had about 50 people here for the liturgy. But I have been asked a question by 2 or 3 people recently, and that is about the icon of the Dormition of the Most Holy Theotokos. And I want to make a few observations about it. As you can see in the icon, you can see Christ taking the soul of the Mother of God into heaven. And there was a very ugly, almost blasphemous folk story that grew up because people did not know the meaning of the icon. And so they made up the story based on this toll house myth that's been poisoning Orthodox thought and theology here in North America for several years now. And I know that even some significant teachers in the church have repeated this story. St. John Maximovich and St. Nikolai Zhicha, both, that the icon says that the Mother of God was so terrified of the aerial toll houses and that it was so difficult to get through the aerial toll houses that she begged her son to come and take her soul through the toll houses because it would be so horrible and even so difficult for her to get through. Well, the first thing, of course, that one must think is that if it would have been extremely difficult and terrible for the Mother of God to go through these so-called toll houses, then the rest of us have no hope at all. We may as well just give up now, eat, drink, and be merry, because there's no possible way. If the Mother of God couldn't get through the toll houses easily, there's no possible way that we could get through them at all. However, I wonder sometimes if people ever pay attention to the divine services of the church. If they ever pay attention to what is actually said in these octoikos, only the octoikos for Sundays and for the 12 great feast days have any really doctrinal value for us. These are written, many of them by St. John Damascene, the ones for Sundays, the resurrection octoikos. But to pay attention to what is said in the divine services, first of all, if there was any reference to these toll houses, it certainly would have been mentioned in the divine services. It would have been mentioned in the octoikos, in the changeable parts for the vigil, for matins, and for the vesper services. But to the contrary, there's absolutely nothing like this. Let us listen to a few of the things that are said in the divine services. In The Lord I Have Cried, we read, "O marvelous wonder, the source of life is laid in a tomb, and the tomb itself becomes a ladder to heaven. Make glad, O Gethsemane, thou sacred abode of the Mother of God. Come, O ye faithful, and with Gabriel let us cry out, Rejoice, thou who art full of grace, the Lord is with thee, granting the world through thee great mercy. O marvelous wonder, the source of life is laid in a tomb. Glorious are thy mysteries, O pure Lady. Thou wast made the throne of the Most High, and today thou art translated from earth to heaven. Thy glory is full of majesty, shining with grace and divine brightness. O ye virgins, ascend on high with the Mother of the King. Rejoice, thou who art full of grace, the Lord is with thee, granting to the world through thee great mercy." And when we go to the Tia, and I realize that many of you in some of the parishes today have never seen or heard the matin services for any feast. And many of you have never even witnessed the Latia service in Great Vespers. Those things are not done. It's one of the great tragedies of our era, because the most profound teachings of the Church are to be found in the resurrection octoikos that is the changeable parts of the service for the Sundays, in the 8 tones. For the Lord I've cried, the Apostica, and several in the Matin service. And in the Litia, for the Dormition of the Mother of God. She that is higher than the heavens, and more glorious than the cherubim, she who is held in greater honor than all creation, she who by reason of her surpassing purity became the receiver of the everlasting essence, today commends her most pure soul into the hands of her Son. With her all things are filled with joy, and she bestows great mercy upon us. She bestows great mercy upon us. Now, does this really sound like somebody who's falling asleep in horror and terror because they think it's going to be impossible for them to make it through the aerial toll houses? And who could have read any of these divine services, or even had an Orthodox veneration for the Mother of God, and thought that she was going to be terrified of something totally imaginary and unsubstantiated by the Holy Fathers, as this mythology of the aerial toll houses? And yet many members of the toll house cult will repeat this blasphemous folktale about the Mother of God needing her Son to carry her through the aerial toll houses, when everything in the divine services tells us exactly the opposite. Now, I realize that some saints of the church even repeated this tale as if it were a tradition of the church, which of course it absolutely is not. You'll never find it mentioned in any of the Holy Fathers of the church. 1 or 2 of the saints, but in none of the Holy Fathers of the church. And read the Octoicals, read the service for the Matins, the Great Vespers, for the Dormition of the Mother of God, and see if you find anything that might vaguely hint of aerial toll houses or her being terrified. Now, how is she going to be terrified of fallen demons who are trampled under the feet of the faithful like scorpions, as St. Anthony the Great tells us? And St. Anthony the Great tells us, don't be afraid of demons. They're only actors on a stage. But they can be trampled under our feet like scorpions. She who is higher than the heavens, more glorious than the cherubim, she who is held in greater honor than all creation, including the demons, by the way, because they're creations. She who by reason of her surpassing purity became the receiver of the everlasting essence, today commends her most pure soul into the hands of her Son. With her all things are filled with joy, and she bestows great mercy upon us. Terrified because she's afraid of these so-called aerial toll houses? Doesn't anyone who repeats this story have any idea who they're talking about? The chalice and the tabernacle of the Most High God? The one whose soul has already been purified by divine grace so that she remains sinless? But if her soul's been purified by divine grace so that she remains totally sinless, the demons are going to flee in terror before her. She's not going to tremble in terror before the demons, but the demons flee before the name of the Mother of God, the Theotokos. So you see to what depth, what corruption, what perversion, what heresy this aerial toll house cult leads to, so that even some of the saints of the church quoting this blasphemous tale, and it's taken as dogma by members of the aerial toll house cult, so that they blaspheme the Mother of God and deny everything that is written about her in the divine services for the Vespers and the Matins of the Dormition of the Mother of God.